Why are we told not to seek outside of ourselves, but to go within? Aren't other things, other people, also a reflection of our internal self? Isn't the teacher or book just speaking to ourselves? Or am I just creating this idea that we must go within? Isn't everything just perspective? Thank you.
The question is just verbiage. You are trying that the mind is really active. The answer to the question is just close your eyes and look at your eyeball. And watch the darkness in the eyeball. And as the darkness disappears, the mind will disappear. And when the mind disappears, the questions will disappear. All questions are stupid. All answers are stupid. So that's the answer.
Thank you. So Teal, I want to put this question to you. How do I tune into my internal guidance system and stop externalizing, giving away my power to others?
Well, the best way to do that is to become acutely aware of how you feel. So when you become triggered, you experience that in terms of sensation within the body. And what you do is you turn your attention acutely internally onto those sensations, and you observe them. You sink into them, in essence. And after you become acquainted with these different sensations, you may begin to mentally define what those sensations are. One of my favorite ways to do this is to maybe print off a sheet of emotions. You can look at a whole list of them, and you can start to identify which feeling is what, and what caused what feeling. But when it comes to tuning into your internal guidance system, aside from becoming acquainted with your emotions, the most important thing is that you become acquainted with the feeling of better or worse. Sometimes we talk about better or worse in terms of relief. If you know what feels better or worse, then you can guide yourself in the direction of what feels better, what feels better, what feels better, and keep going in the direction of that. And that is going to guide you through life. So that's the internal guidance system. Now, giving away your power to other people, I think that's a mental construct which really doesn't serve people very well. So, if I were in your position, because that's really a two-part question, I would drop the second part of the question and only focus on how to tune into your own emotions.
Thank you so much. I'd love Dr. Pillai to share this one. When people need to control their surroundings and things in life, what are they usually escaping from or trying to escape from?
You create everything. The surrounding is not outside of you. Everything is your own creation. You see what you want to see. As I've said in the talk earlier, poverty and prosperity are not given to you by others. Health or ill health are not given to you by others. The inner creates everything. The surrounding is yours. You don't want to deal with it externally. The whole problem of our civilization is we focus our attention on the external reality. If you are really, really conscious, then you control everything. Just not conscious of the mind, but conscious of your soul, of your higher self. Then the external reality doesn't matter because it simply doesn't exist. Even to analyze why I created this surrounding or this things that surround me is unnecessary exercise. Just go beyond discrediting whatever is around you, being the creation of a lower self. And that is not, we are not going to worry about what is around. What is around doesn't really matter. What matters is your own consciousness and your own ability to create, because there is nothing bigger or greater than your consciousness. So you simply discredit that, whether it is a serious problem of health or no money, but don't give credence to any of these things. And that is living in the now. If we live in the now, everything falls apart. Living in the mind now is living outside the realm of the mind, outside the realm of time. So that's how you deal with it. You live the now. When you live the now, everything falls apart. The mind falls apart. The time falls apart. It's not a philosophy. It is an experience. It is an experience. I spoke about the Raman Maharshi this morning, where whom Carl Jung went to see him. And then he was taken to the court. And then they were fighting on the property, the family of the guru versus the devotees of the guru. The judge asked Raman Maharshi, the properties are here. Who do you want the properties to go to? He answered the question, the properties don't exist. You don't exist. I don't exist. What are you talking about? This is a reality. This is a reality. You can live, you cannot live, even if you can't live that high reality, but you will eventually be able to do that, provided you train your consciousness. So surroundings do not matter.
So what would you say is the best way to get into the now, then, from your perspective? The best way to get into the now for the average person?
Well, nobody is average unless you want to be average. That's the bottom line. Nobody is, below anybody. Jesus said, you can do better than I do. You can move mountains if you have faith like a mustard seed. He never said if you have faith like a pumpkin. Even if you have faith like a mustard seed, you can move mountains. All that is required is faith. And my definition of faith is utter positivity. You have to be totally be positive. And then you don't ever think that you are mediocre. You are not mediocre. And that is a wrong programming. Everyone has the ability to be a Christ, to be a Buddha. But then if you wrongly identify yourself with your job or with your surroundings, then that's a mistake. Because you are God. That's a literal truth. What do you want to associate with? God's self or your mediocre self? That's the thing that everyone has to decide. Everyone has this infinite resource. That I said in the morning, God created man in his own image. So you have the power. You have the power. Not the mind power, not your college education. Look at all the people who have made a great difference in their life. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson. All these people never finished their college. There are people with PhDs without jobs. So it is your own creation. And that's a literal truth. It's not philosophy. You have to live it. So you are not average. You are sovereign. You are sovereign. The day you accept that, you will become the sovereign. That's the bottom line. And if you think it is a philosophy, it is not true, I am still poor, then you will be poor. That's the truth. Don't look about, so many people are poor here and then it's a recession. Even in a poor country, there are billionaires. So that is their identity. Your identity is what you think. I'll tell you about Gandhi. Gandhi, after he got his education in the US, in England, he was a barrister. He went back, he was in South Africa, you know what happened in South Africa. Then he went to India. People asked Gandhi, what are you going to do? I'm going to look for a job because I am broke. I have to raise a family. Then the people said, if there are enough rich people here to take care of your family, can you drive the British out of India? He did not wink an eye. Yes, I can. This is a man who was challenging the British Empire where the sun never set. Where did he have the courage? A man who was looking for a job. So what is important is that your own resolution, your own identity is what matters. If your identity is average, you are average. Okay? So we are in a transition. The world is in a transition. The brain is changing so that we don't have this low self-esteem anymore. Then everybody will, that's the golden age. Okay? That's at least my view.
Thank you.
Can I add something about the now? Okay, I think one of the biggest lies that we like to tell the world and each other is that the now is always going to feel good. That's why a lot of people will tell you, like, get into the now because it's going to be better. Why? Because the past hurts and the future isn't here yet. But your now is the culmination of everything that you have been. That means if you've been through trauma, guess what's embedded in the now? So what happens when a lot of people try to chase the now is that they're suddenly present with the painful feelings that they feel. And the, I guess, cellular aspects of themselves, which are the culmination of that trauma. So for a lot of you, when you hear people say, come into the now because it feels good, but you come into the now and it feels not good, you start judging yourself as if something has gone wrong. That is not what has happened. You're just becoming present to what is the current reality for yourself. So the most important thing is that you become present with whatever is there in the current moment. And for a lot of you, that's not going to be joy. It's not going to be pleasure. It's not going to feel good. But that doesn't make it wrong.
How do we cope with the pain of knowing that we will live, or we will have to separate from our loved ones, the fear of losing them, and the loss of those already gone? So how do we cope with the pain of separation from someone dying, basically? Don't know who wants to go first.
When you live in the now, two moments are not linked unless you link it. Okay? The problem for humanity is to really become conscious. We are unconscious, and that's why the problem comes. When you are totally conscious and see the disconnectedness and separateness and then independentness of every moment, then there is only celebration. You celebrate every moment. Then you don't, that's what Jesus said when somebody said, my father died and then I have to go and do the funeral ceremony and then I will come and join you. And I said this morning, let the dead bury the dead. Your father is physically dead, and the people around him are spiritually dead. Let those dead people take care of the dead body. You follow me. How? Deny thyself and follow me. And that is Jesus. So when you are conscious, then nothing affects you. Nothing really affects you. But as I said, it's not philosophy. You have to live that. You need the courage to do that. And that comes through practice. That comes through experiencing the moment. And when you live the moment, all these attachments do not exist. Well, this happened to Jesus, it happened to the Buddha, I am not a Buddha, I am not a Jesus Christ. So that's the Osho used to say this beautifully. He used to say, everybody tries to be a Buddhist, not a Buddha. Everybody tries to be a Christian, not a Christ. That's the problem. Because it's easier to be a follower. Okay? Because, you can always, say, I'm not Christ, I'm only a Christian. I'm not a Buddha, I'm only a Buddhist. But the whole idea is everyone, is equal. And that's how it is. And you have to assert that reality. And when that reality comes, then nothing bothers you. And that is true freedom. True freedom is not to be, call yourself, I'm just victimized by circumstances. I cannot get out of this sorrow. You have to understand who you are. Even the I consciousness is your identity with the circumstances. It's, related to the previous question. So you are not going to be defined by what happens to you. The mind cannot direct you. You have to direct your mind. But the problem now is the mind directs you. You have to direct the mind. You are bigger than the mind. As he said in the lecture, that when you go to sleep, the mind goes to sleep. You are not dead. Only the mind is sleeping. And the mind identity is the problem. And when that is gone, then there is liberation.
I think death is a liberation. I think when we go through grief, we concern ourselves too often with trying to feel different than how we feel. And as you can tell, this is going to be a theme of this talk for me, right? Yes. Basically, when we lose somebody, it's about when we say how do we cope with that, right? What we really mean is how do I stop feeling so bad? What if we approached that question from a completely different angle and we said, what if I let myself completely feel this? What would I be like on the other side? Any of you who have really lost somebody, you know that essentially what happens when you let the loss of someone burn completely through your being, you're completely different on the other side. So what we have to acknowledge is that some of these very difficult things we face are given to us by the universe specifically so that we can be transformed into a completely different person than we were once. The person who suffers the most from these types of experiences is the person who is unwilling to completely let go of who they are. So this talk that we were supposed to have today is supposed to center around the ego. This could not be any better question for that particular topic. The ego is a separate sense of self. When you experience loss or something that's so profound that that particular sensation, the feeling of that experience, burns you alive, it is burning off layers of your ego so that all that's left is your transcendental self. So what I would say is the best way to cope with it is to completely let it burn through you. I mean, like totally and completely surrender. It is the art of surrendering you have to practice when you're up against something you have absolutely no control over. And I can't even explain to you what the feeling is like on the other side because it's something that we can talk about all day long, but until you experience it, it's just words. On the other side of surrendering to that kind of experience is you not just talking about being one with everything, you experience being one with absolutely everything. And nobody can take that away from you ever again. You will lose your painful attachments by virtue of experiencing loss. So let yourself loose. We're living in a community, especially in the Western world, where we try to drug you out of it feeling anything. And when we do that, not only do we halt your progress, we prevent you from ever experiencing life beyond the ego self. So be brave enough to feel.
During the exercise, I didn't see any light beams. My eyes remained in darkness. Is it because I wanted the experience so badly?
Don't analyze your experiences. Every moment is new. Sometimes the experience will be very deep. Sometimes it will not be so deep. So keep doing that. And then when you are able to, the way I would recommend is that if you stay in this condition for about an hour, your reality will change. Your perception of your reality will definitely change. Because we do not detach ourselves from our eyes. The eyes, that's why we close our eyes during meditation. Because the eyes are the doorways to look at this world, which is Maya, which is an illusion. It's an illusion. And then that illusion has to be experienced by you. So when you do this exercise, when the eyeballs don't move, then there won't be any movement the neurons will be firing less and less. And then the thoughts won't come. Then you will see the time stopping. And when the light takes over and changes the darkness within the eyeballs, then you will be close to seeing your soul, experiencing the soul, which is no experience. Again, because there is no experiencer. The experiencer is lost in the experience, resulting in what the Buddha would call nirvana or emptiness. So that's an experience.
The question is, so Teal, I want to be seriously wealthy. I have, again, someone else's question. I do want to be seriously wealthy, by the way. I want to be seriously wealthy. I have put my plans in place. I have asked the universe and God, what else must I be doing in order to succeed?
What else must I be doing in order to succeed?
Yeah.
Well, it's a vibrational reality that whatever you are is reflected back to you. So when you're in a space of intense wanting, all that's going to be reflected back to you is intense lacking, because that is where wanting comes from. Do you see? We can't escape desire, of course, nor would you ever want to. But in that feeling of almost desperation for something, you are acknowledging what you don't have. So what signal are you broadcasting to the universe in order to be reflected back at you? You're broadcasting the signal I don't have. So the best thing you could do if you want to manifest something like that is to get yourself, by virtue of doing whatever you can, into a vibration of already being in a space where you have that thing that you're telling yourself currently that you're wanting. Because people have such a difficult time with visualizations, meaning putting themselves in a space where they have something that they don't currently have, my particular favorite techniques for manifesting wealth is to figure out what wealth you have currently in your life. So there's a practice which I suggest doing, which is way, way good, where you imagine that you are somebody who has about 100 times less than you have. So like, let's say that you are real poor and you've got a terrible apartment. I would imagine being homeless. And from the perspective of being homeless, step into your life and look around. What would you appreciate? What would make you feel wealthy? You've got to feel wealthy in your current life for you to manifest whatever it is that you are wanting. Now, a lot of people are worried that when they start focusing on the wealth they already have, the universe will hear, oh, they already have everything. Okay, never mind, not going to give you the rest. That is not how it works. This is not a retarded universe. Okay? Yeah, it knows what you want. And so, by virtue of just living, you really don't have to put any effort into desiring, did you notice, right? No effort into desiring whatsoever. as you live your day-to-day life, you're giving rise to desires all day long. Every one of those is recorded within the universe. This universe knows exactly what you want. All you need to do is to release resistance in order to line up with that thing that you want. So by paying attention to the wealth you already have in your current life, all that's happening is you're releasing the anchor that has you tied to this lack of abundant state. And by virtue of releasing your attachment to that anchor, you are going to flow in the direction of abundance. And the abundance you've been asking for, not just more of what you already have.
You've been teaching for many, many years. And India, of course, is a mix of cultures. What do you say to when people come to you?
The ancient cultures, whether it is Eastern or Western, they always had relationship with the invisible world, with gods and goddesses. For instance, when Jesus was arrested, it's a very, if you get arrested, you are really thrown away. And Jesus was very cool, and he said to Peter, don't draw your sword to fight with the soldiers. If God had wanted to help me, he would have sent an angel. The very fact that he did not send an angel means that he wants me to suffer. I accept that. The reason why I am saying this is, particularly in the Eastern tradition, what you cannot change, the invisible beings can do. In Isaiah, in the Old Testament, God says, call on me. I will always answer your call and show you where the treasures are hidden. And Jesus said the same thing, call on me and do it in my name. The reason why I am quoting the Bible, not my own tradition, is that, most of you are familiar with the biblical tradition. Because there are beings that they are very, very powerful. So on my own, if you go and look at one single word, B-R-Z-E-E, Srim Brizi sometimes. Just see the word Srim Brizi and see how many people have been benefited by this mantra, which was revealed to me personally, which is the prosperity mantra. A sound that can give you prosperity. And you can see the testimonials there. And there are several companies all over the world who have picked up this name. Recently I got one from even China with this name. What is there in the name? Everything is in the name. Everything is in the name. Because it creates the reality. Whether it is Jesus' name or Rama or Krishna, like the Hare Krishnas. That's why it is said, don't say God's name in vain. And I've been teaching for 40 years in this lifetime at least. And the Beatles, of course. The Beatles made the Maharishi famous in the early days. And they were with him in the Himalayas. And the Maharishi was also my guru. And the reason why TM became the most reputed scientific movement in the world is because they use sounds. I told Wayne Dyer, you can talk about for hours and hours to an audience of 5,000, 10,000 people, but one sound, the R sound, if you use it, that will give you everything. So because sounds create the reality. That's why in the beginning there was the Word. The Word was with God, and everything came out of the Word. So sounds create the reality. And my approach is use these sounds and create whatever you want to create. There are so many sounds.
Someone asked, what is the sound of love?
There are so many sounds for love. The one sound that is that can create relationship and unconditional love is the sound Kleem, K-L-E-E-M, Kleem. Again, there are a lot of entries on this sound by people who learned the sound from me and then created music. So musicians have created music, and it's also on the YouTube. This sound will create love. Okay, and this will create love between two genders. So one guy who is in New York, in San Francisco, and he started using the sound for relationship, and he attracted a lot of women. And then he came to me. And then this is a big problem. I have all women coming to me. Is there a sound to attract men? It's also on the YouTube. And I said, I don't know anything offhand. I will do the research and I will get back to you. And I found the sound. And it is on the YouTube. This is about 7-8 years ago. Okay, what the sound is, if you are interested, you can go and find out. Okay, it's in the YouTube. It's called the gay mantra.
Thank you. Sorry.
The science of sound is so, so vast and intricate. Okay. Sounds create everything. That's what the modern theory in quantum physics, the string theory says, everything starts from the sound. So this is the finding of the yogis, as well as the Bible. In the beginning, there was the Word. God spoke the Word, and the world came into existence. How sounds can create is a big science, but we don't want to go into that. Just use the sounds and get whatever you want to get. Okay?
I love the idea of sound influencing reality because that is a reality of our existence. And obviously we've been sitting at these talks. We would know that by now, yes. So I would like to add, though, that you can really, if you don't have access, some of us don't have access to the actual sound of love. And so for some of us, it's a highly theoretical concept. So if that's the way that you feel about sound, you can make it simplified in this way. The sound of love is whatever sound brings you a sensation of appreciation or a sensation of joy. That means for some of us, the sound of love is going to be the sound of the heartbeat of someone that we love. For someone, the sound of love is going to be the sound of rain outside your window. For some of you, the sound of love is going to be hoofbeats of a horse racing on a track. For some of you, it's going to be the stadium. Whatever the sound of love is, you're right about, because your emotions reflect it back to you. And it tells you, this sound is what lights me on fire. This sound is what makes me just want to close my eyes and lose myself in it. In that moment of appreciation, you are losing your separate self. And that is the definition of love. So let the sound of love be whatever causes you to feel that joy.
So this person, I'll start backwards first. They're saying, I was brought up a Roman Catholic, sent to a Catholic convent boarding school, and I'm learning to find my way and my spiritual path. How do you see religions, denominations, and their place, role in humanity's spiritual development and journeys?
My training is phenomenology of religion. That's where I got my PhD from the University of Pittsburgh. Phenomenology of religion means that all religions talk about one phenomenon, that's God, which cannot be reduced to a particular religion. Okay. The external religion as an organization or an institution will differ. But the core phenomenon, which is the phenomenology of religion is about, is there is a God or a force that is beyond our human understanding, that is super intelligent. That's what Einstein would call God. God, for him, is super intelligence. And that is there in every religion, whether it is Catholic, Protestant, or any other denomination. And we have the same belief and faith in every other religion. I don't think that one religion is better than the other. It is the individual perception of the Messiah or the prophet, gives a different color. Allah is for the Muslims. But unfortunately what happens is, unless you belong to that religion, you will not be able to relate to it. For instance, you cannot make a Muslim to relate to a Hindu god, vice versa. So why? That is a conditioning, that grows, that is because of your upbringing. I can relate to Allah. I can relate to Christ. I can relate to Shiva. I can relate to the Egyptian religion. I can relate to everything. That, when you get beyond that, there is only one reality, and that is expressed differently by different religions. But I must say that if you are a Catholic, then you are more prone to understand that better. And if we cannot, there is another reason too. But there are a lot of my followers across the world are attached to Hinduism. Why? It's a memory from the past. They have lived in India for many years. And although they are born here in the West, they are not able to relate to Christ or any other traditions. But in that case, then you have to go back and then feel where your emotions are, your attachment are, your faith is, and that can benefit you a lot. So everybody has to answer yourself. And if you are an agnostic, then that will appeal to you. Okay? That's the most important thing. Or the best way to answer this question is, somebody came to the Buddha and then asked Buddha, is there a God? He said, no, there is no God. Next man came and asked Buddha, is there a God? Yes, there is a God. And then he said, thank you, Buddha, and left. And then the third guy came, Buddha, is there a God? The Buddha said, I don't know. He said, thank you, Buddha. And the chief disciple of the Buddha was confused. For the first man, you said there was no God. For the second man, you said there is God. And the third man, you said, I don't know. So what is the truth? The Buddha said, the truth is that there is no truth. Everybody creates his own truth. The first guy is absolutely convinced that there is no God. There is no use talking to him and wasting my time. And he wanted the Buddha's approval, I gave him. The second guy is absolutely convinced that there is God. I gave him my approval. And he said, thank you. The third guy is an agnostic. And I said, I don't know. So that satisfied him. So what is important is to know that truth is that there is no truth. You create your own truth. Catholic, Protestant, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, whatever denomination they were, because it's all self-aggrandizement. And then your sympathy goes with that group. Because the truth is that there is no truth, that you have sympathy towards it, and that's where you feel good about it and follow it. And eventually you have to see the universality and the wonders of all religions. Because my study is also comparative religion, because I have dealt with, groups belonging to different religions, and the truth is that there is only oneness, and then there are multiple expressions of it. Okay.
I think that it's really not a very intelligent thing for us to look at anything in terms of whether it was all good or all bad. Because the reality is that everything has served us in some way, and most things that serve us also detract. So when it comes to religion, in terms of the evolution of the consciousness of our species, it has aided and assisted us to understand what is beyond the temporal, the temporary, and the physical. But I am going to be so bold as to say that we have reached an age where religion is dead. And I don't want to erect it. I would love to watch it die. I would love to watch it die as fast as humanly possible. There has been no greater cause for war on this planet than religion. I have not seen... I have not seen religion do anything but separate people. Now, there are religions on this planet that celebrate the idea of oneness. And I have seen those same religions use that very doctrine as a reason to separate themselves from other religions. We are reaching a time in our consciousness, in our evolution, where we are fully capable of creating our own religion built for one. That is where you start to collect the aspects of every religion and every non-religious person, every thought that serves you specifically. You become a devotee to that. Now, the beauty in that particular way of living is that your access to Source itself comes through you specifically and no one else. No building that someone built. No idiots talking to you on a stage.
Another very important question, I feel, which is to do with happiness. How can I, and to both of you, perhaps have a conversation around this one, how can I be happy whilst the suffering, torture, and abuse of animals and our fellow sentient beings is happening on a daily basis? For me to be happy while this is going on would be to turn my back on them and to deny their pain. So when they suffer, I suffer. So I will never be able to be happy in this lifetime.
When you see suffering and look at it, now there is green grass, beautiful green grass. And then the cow comes and eats the grass. And then the cow is killed by a tiger. And a man comes and kills the tiger. So life lives upon life everywhere. So happiness, the unhappiness is inbuilt in creation. There is no way we can separate ourselves from unhappiness as long as we have a body. That's what my main primary teaching is, regardless of how wealthy you are or how famous you are. As long as you have a body and emotions, there you have really the problem of suffering. And that one, has to be transcended, and that can be transcended only when the body is transcended. That's why it's very clearly said by Paul, this physical body, this corruption will not inherit the kingdom. This corruption will not inherit the kingdom. In the wink of an eye, the body will turn into light. Well, we have the similar teaching in the Hindu tradition. Ultimately, eventually, if you want to be completely happy, you have to evolve. And the evolution lies in turning the body into light. And that then the material is, then you will become immune to pain. That's a matter of evolution. That is primarily my teaching. My main teaching is human evolution. We are basically now light. And this material body is an illusion. Like Einstein's definition of matter is light stopped. Light stopped is matter. And we have stopped the light through this mound of flesh. And that can be reversed. And when it can be reversed, then they will go back into light. And then we accomplish ultimate happiness. Okay? And then happiness has to be separated from pleasure. Pleasure is different. If you have a lot of money, you can do a lot of fun things and make yourself happy. That's pleasure. But happiness is something that that is our nature, which is our light, nature that we are light. And that is the ultimate goal for the human race, which is human evolution. That's my point of view.
I would not expect yourself to be in a good space watching something suffer. I have only seen people who have been at this practice with intense dedication to an extreme degree, be able to stay in alignment when they're watching any kind of suffering. So first of all, you should let yourself off the hook there. Nobody in my position or our position is going to say, look, feel good about it when you're watching animals or children get tortured and tormented. We don't like it any more than you do, obviously. Otherwise, probably wouldn't be in this chair, trying to add to people's happiness and the well-being of the world every day. But we've got to consider that by suffering as a result of something else suffering, you are not taking away from their suffering whatsoever. So we like to kid ourselves into thinking that it's really, really virtuous of us to just suffer the hell out of life because somehow that unites us with someone else that is hurting. All we just did is multiply pain. So we've got to get out of that virtuosity trap. It does not make you a good person to suffer. That's a lie you were fed in childhood. And I want to put forth the idea that you already think you're turning your back on things that are in pain by feeling good. But by feeling bad, you are turning your back on joy. You're turning your back on every in alignment thing that happens on this earth. Now, the things we don't want, they attract our attention. They are meant to because we are creators. We are meant to decide what is unwanted and by virtue of that decide what is wanted instead and create that kind of reality. So our attention is completely prone to going in the direction of what is unwanted and what doesn't feel good. But I can promise you that the well-being on this planet far outweighs all of the negative if you combined it. All you need to do to understand that is to walk into nature. Spend 5 minutes there. The grass blade is in a state of peace. The butterfly is in a state of peace. You watch the most amount of suffering in the human race. I want you to consider, especially because this particular subject was about animals, that humans are the ones that resist death the most and torment. We are the most controlling species. I am not an advocate, as a vegan myself, for any kind of suffering for any being on this planet. Unfortunately, you add to suffering no matter what you do. Have you noticed yet? Suffering must serve a purpose then. But I want you to think about adding to the well-being on this planet more so than you think about the eradication of suffering. Really, really important to understand that you don't take away darkness on this earth by trying to suck darkness out of this earth. All you do is you turn on the light. So any amount of joy you add to yourself or any other being on this planet is a step in the direction of that light, is a step in the direction of joy instead of in the direction of suffering. By turning your back on joy for yourself and your life, you are turning your back on joy for all beings on this planet. There was a misconception at the premise of that question. You can't ask that question and believe in oneness at the same time. By being in a state of suffering, even if it's about suffering of another being, you are adding to suffering on this planet, or else you don't believe in oneness. So ask yourself that question, do I believe in oneness? If so, I will focus on whatever causes me to feel good, knowing that it adds to the whole.
How do I maintain being in a state of higher consciousness whilst carrying out mundane work, especially with people?
There is a beautiful analogy. You have to live this world. And how to live this world is like a water drop on a lotus leaf. It doesn't get stuck and it rolls on the lotus leaf. And that's how you should live life. You should not get identified with joy nor with suffering, but your own identity as God. And that identity will give you, there's a saying, yad bhavam tad bhavati, which means you, at every given moment, you become as you think. That's the bottom line. If you think you are poor, you are poor. If you think you are rich, you are rich. That's why there is this practice in the yogic tradition. If you want to be rich, that only hold that thought at least for an 8-hour period of time. And then if we keep on doing that thought over and over and over and over and over again, that will become the reality. Okay? That is a mechanical way of training your mind. You train your mind by saying, there's a saying like, Aham Brahmasmi, I am God, I am God, I am God, I am God. And then first it will be like a wordy concept, but then it gets deeply rooted in you, and that becomes the reality. And that is how you live life. You interact with people, but then you are not part of the world. You maintain your own identity. Your own joy is nobody can touch your joy. Whatever happens is not going to hurt you if you are resolute. And then identify yourself with the higher self, which is God. And if you have that identity, nobody can touch you. But if you just lose your confidence, no, I am weak, most people are weak, if you can, you are talking about an idealistic philosophy, Now that's not going to work. Then we will, have to suffer. Okay? It is, everybody, is a spark of God. It's a matter of what you want to accept. If you want to be, true to your own reality, which is God, then you have to affirm that and not consider it as just a philosophy or garbage. If you think it's garbage, it's garbage. But it is not garbage. That is, to me, that is the literal truth. The literal truth, you are God. You are bliss. Okay, that's how we'll deal with this life.
I got an issue with the question itself. I'm just going to say it. If we're going to ask, how do we make spirituality become a part of mundane life? We've made life mundane and not spiritual. There is nothing more spiritual about a guru. No, let's start differently. There's nothing more spiritual about a guru than there is spiritual about a keyboard. If you want an objective truth, try that on for size. Literally, this table, nothing more spiritual about this table or less spiritual than me. We are all made of the same material. We are all made of united collective consciousness. Every step you take is a spiritual step. It literally doesn't matter how spiritual or non-spiritual you are. That just means you become more or less conscious of the spiritual reality, the non-physical reality. That's all that means. So I think the very best thing you could do if you want to integrate spiritual practice into what we could consider temporal life is to start to see the divinity in temporal life. What you notice in people who are highly enlightened is that they get very quiet, and it's almost like everything becomes a thing of beauty. I don't know if some of you watched this movie. There was a movie, a real modern movie that came out a while ago called American Beauty. Did any of you see that? If you want to understand this concept, there was an amazing image in that film where the guy filmed a plastic bag blowing around in the wind. Most people would walk by that plastic bag and be like, oh my gosh, it's just a piece of crap. Let's throw it in the garbage. That is a spiritual experience. It's a plastic bag, you guys. Every second of your life in this physical world is a spiritual experience. So if I was working in a cubicle, I would just practice the art of remembering that it is the spiritual reality, our soul in essence, that has created this physical temporal reality for us. And I would, instead of treating spirituality like a way to escape from life, as a way to get out of the physical experience, I would get into it deeper and deeper and deeper. I would really practice what it feels like to hug someone, or what it feels like to have my feet on the pavement, or to swallow food. Let's really eat up this physical life experience. If you're living in a cubicle, feel what it feels like to type on those keys. Become conscious of how amazing it is that we have invented a way that information can fly across space and time. We don't see it, we don't even understand it, but it happens every day. If you let yourself be blown away by this physical temporal world, you are practicing spirituality, but in a practical, physical way.